Welcome to another episode of the Starter Girlz Podcast. I am your host, Jennifer Loehding, and wherever you are tuning in today, we are so excited to have you. All right, here we are, another episode, another day. So excited about my guest. And so let's open this up. My guest today has spent over 3 decades navigating the world of high finance. But what sets him apart isn't just his experience, it's his passion for making complex ideas clear, accessible, and meaningful. A truth seeker, a thought leader, and a voice of clarity in a noisy world, he's redefining what it means to lead with both insight and integrity. And so I am so excited to chat with him today. I think this is going to be an awesome conversation. But before we bring him on, I do need to do a quick shout out to our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Walt Mills Productions. Need to add excitement to your YouTube videos or some expert hands for editing? Look no further. Walt Mills is the solution you've been searching for. Walt is not only your go-to guy for spicing up content, he's the force behind a thriving film production company with numerous titles in the pipeline. Always on the lookout for raw talent, Walt is eager to collaborate on film and internet productions. With a background deeply rooted in entertainment and promotion, Walt Mills leverages years of skills to give you the spotlight you deserve. Want to learn more about Walt and his work? Head on over to waltmillsproductions.net and let your content shine. All right. And with that, I want to make one more mention to head on over to startergirlz.com. And why do you want to head over there? For 3 reasons. 1, if you've missed any episodes, it's a great place to catch up. All of them are there. You can also sign up for our community newsletter where you can stay in the know and keep up with what we've got going on and all of the episodes that are upcoming. And then, of course, if you are an aspiring entrepreneur, creator, maybe you're in the thick of it, I don't know. You want to find out what your number 1 success block is that may be impacting your success. And it could be a money block for real. You can head on over there. I have a 2-minute free quiz that you can take that'll actually tell you what that block is and how it may be impacting your business right now. So head on over to startergirlz.com and do whatever you need to do over there. All right. Let's welcome our guest today. So joining me today is Paul Musson, a veteran investment expert with over 30 years in the financial industry, including his role as lead portfolio manager for the IB funds at McKinsey Investment. He's the founder of Paddington Capital Management and the author of the book Capital Offence: Why Some Benefit at Your Expense. Through his writing platform, Political Economy, Paul breaks down the complexities of global economics to help others better understand the systems that shape our world. With a rare mix of experience, clarity, and purpose, Paul brings a refreshing perspective to the financial conversation. So, Paul, welcome to the show. So excited to chat with you today.
Well, thank you, Jennifer. It's great to be here.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. And you know what I love about this? Because I like all this, kind of realistic talk, because it's so fun when I get people on this show, because we get, like I mentioned before we were on the recording, I get so many different types of people, different careers, different personalities. And I always love it because I talk about my different people that come on, my ones that are really high energy, and we go ping, ping, ping back and forth. And I love those conversations, but I'm not going to lie. When I get done, I'm tired because it's like both of us. Right. Yeah, but I also love it when I get my other people that are kind of grounded and serious and can bring the realism to the show, because it just kind of makes everything sort of soften down a little bit and I get to relax a little bit. So I'm excited for this conversation today because I think we're going to get a little bit of both today.
Okay. Hopefully you don't find it depressing.
Nah. Never depressing. You don't seem like that kind of a person. I think it's going to be good. So
no, it's a positive.
All right, so let's talk about you. I want to talk about what you're doing, what makes you different, because I kind of mentioned that in the bio. So tell us a little bit about what's going on in your world right now, what you're doing to help your clients, and what you're putting out there.
Yeah. So, as you mentioned, I was a professional investor for my career, which I loved. I loved doing it. And we would look for, very high quality companies that would put productive capital to use and create more capital. And that would help our clients to retire in comfort, help ensure their future financial well-being. But importantly, this capital is being created and our clients are benefiting not at the expense of anybody else, but because they saved and invested the money, and then companies put that money to good use to create more capital. And so nobody benefits at the expense of somebody else. And I'll give you some examples in a second. But as I was doing this, investing this over the years, I started to see that the system was moving away from this sort of benefit along with somebody else, and instead benefit at the expense of somebody else. And in my book, I kind of liken it to a game of poker, where if you have, 5 players at the poker game, there's no capital created at the poker table. There is a redistribution of wealth at that poker table. You have one winner and a bunch of losers. Now, that's probably starting to sound familiar to your listeners with respect to what's going on in the economy. And it's not a conspiracy theory. It's not bad intentions. I think it was good intentions by policymakers that went bad. And we can talk about why that happened. But anyways, the reason I wrote this book and why I'm doing what I'm doing now was because I just grew increasingly frustrated observing what was happening, why some people were benefiting at somebody else's expense. They should not be. And a lot of people don't understand why it's happening or how it's happening. And so I've been writing about this in my quarterly reports to my clients for years. And a lot of them had said, Paul, you should really write a book about this one day. And a couple of my bosses said the same thing, because you're the only one that we hear. There are others out there, but and so, that increasingly became my passion. I've always been, not always, but since 2002, I've been a really big proponent of clear and intellectually honest communication. And so that's been my passion ever since. And I can tell you why there was a moment where I changed. And so then I left my Mackenzie Investments, which I loved working there. I loved my team. But I couldn't be a professional investor and write at the same time. I can be a consultant and write at the same time. And so that's why I ended up forming my own company and writing my blog, which is a weekly blog, which, I try to have fun with it as well. But as you said, try to empower people with knowledge and truth, because I believe that most people are very smart, especially when it comes down to what to do with their own capital, with their own skin in the game, with their own hard-earned money. They don't need policymakers to tell them what to do with it, or how much they should spend, or what prices they should be paying. They know. And so by empowering people with knowledge about what's happening and the truth, then people will be able to demand better behavior, better decision-making from our policymakers. Not big behavior, shouldn't use that word, but better decision-making. They're good people, policymakers. They're not evil. Like, I don't believe in these conspiracy theories. There may be some conspiracies out there, but, I don't think there are. But you don't have to be angry. You don't have to believe in a conspiracy theory to be angry about what's going on. And so policymakers will do the right things, but we have to demand it from them and vote those people into power. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I have great faith. I mean, not just because my efforts, obviously, but people are starting to see that the path that we are on is not sustainable. It's not fair, and it's not sustainable. So one way or the other, it is going to end. So how it ends, we can decide. If we want to control the ending, it'll be very painful, or an uncontrolled ending, which would be significantly more painful. So pain is, unfortunately, that's why I said hopefully you won't be depressed. Unfortunately, there's no way out of this without pain. More for some than for others. But if people understand what's going on and what we need to do to fix it, I think they'd be willing to go take the necessary steps, as long as they believe that we're all in this together. And it's not just me that's going to be suffering from the pain and everybody else up here is going to make out like bandits, right? Nobody's willing to take the necessary steps if they think the consequences just fall on them.
Right.
So anyway, that's sort of a long-winded answer to
No, it's good. It's good. And I have so many things. I mean, like so many angles I could go with this as I'm talking about. Because right now, like the whole thing when you were talking at the beginning, I was thinking of the Pareto principle, because I was thinking about I built this program, and I remember watching this Jordan Peterson clip, because you were talking about poker, and he'd used Monopoly as kind of the way to think about it, how there's always one clear winner in the Monopoly, right? It's kind of a redistribution. Whoever, there's always going to be the winner and the people that aren't. Anyways, that came to mind. But the other part of this that I'm listening, because obviously I can hear your passion through this, and I think it's interesting because I had another guy on here the other day, and we were not talking about finance at all, but we were talking about like human condition, being human. But we got into this conversation at the end about how we focus so much, the political parties, and we were talking, I don't even know how we got into this. We weren't really talking politics, but we were just talking about how we focus so much on our differences when really we all have the same universal principle needs, exactly. Right? Like I was telling him about how I interviewed people all over the world. And if you listen to the news, they would have you convinced that all these people all over the place are very different than you. And no, they have the same basic universal needs all over the world. They need shelter, they need food, they want to love their families, take care of their families, they want to earn a living. Most people are decent people for the most part in most places, right? And so, we were talking about this whole idea of how we focus so much on our differences and our truths. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I feel like there are so many of us that we have different areas that we're honed in on, because I can hear what you're saying, and I totally agree with you on it. I get it. I don't know all the facts, but I'm with you on it. I don't think that all the policymakers are bad. I think they intend to do good, but a lot of them, I don't even know if they know what they're doing. I think they get so wrapped in it. I mean, we've all been in organizations where the people up at the top, they think they're doing good, but from the other side, we can look at this and go, you're just spiraling. Like there's no organization here. It's a giant mess. Right. And we know they're not evil people. Right. Yeah. So I'm with you on all of that. But my point to this, going back to what I was saying, is that I think there are several of us that, like for me, it's health and wellness. It's like knowing what we need to know about medicine and all of this and I don't know, that I believe every single thing that's out there, but I do think the more power and knowledge we have about our own health and what we can do and what we can't do and all of those things, it makes us better informed. And so a lot of my work is, and how do we educate people to be healthy in mind and body so that they can make these decisions that you're talking about, come to it from a mindset of groundedness and intellect and knowledge, right? And be open to receiving the knowledge, right? Because it's just this big thing, because you and I can talk about all these things, but they're not even open to hearing it. It's just going poof, and so I there's so many things here I'm listening to, and I just think that there are so many of us, and I feel like a lot of them come on my show that we're very passionate about the things, but it's really at the root is really about giving people knowledge and power back to them. Right. And your point on the pain. Okay. You're not depressing me, because here I just told a woman yesterday that I'm not a Band-Aid fixer, that if you want to work with me, we're going to work to solve a problem, because it's going to be painful. Yeah. Because if you want to make real change on any level, I don't care whether it's get your health right, your finances right, your relationship, whatever it is, you're going to go through some chaos. As my previous guest said, you're going to go through some chaos before you have that transformation. And if you're not willing to accept that, then you're not willing to make the change. That's the way I see it.
No, it's the same principle. It's exactly the same. And can I make two comments on two of the things that you just said there, which I think are quite pertinent? So you mentioned about, the divisiveness, and politically, and, we hate that group over there and they hate us. And well, I think a big reason for this is what is happening in the economy and the monetary system, and how the unfairness benefits some at the expense of others. And people can see that they're not benefiting to the extent that others are, or as much as their parents did. So our kids might be better educated than us, work just as hard, but can't afford the sort of lifestyle that we had. And they say, well, why is that? Something's going on. I'm getting ripped off here. They don't understand. We can talk about that too. And they don't understand why, so they look for someone to blame. And I think then it's very easy for, in the US, for Democrats to blame Republicans, Republicans blame Democrats. Here in Canada, conservatives blame liberals and vice versa. And that brings the leaders to the fore who will foment that sort of feeling. And it feels good to be angry, to be in a group where you could be angry at somebody else.
Right.
But, as you just said, we're all the same. We've all got the same challenges, the same goals and loves and family and everything like that. And I've got,
at the end of the day, yes.
I've got great friends on both sides.
Me too.
And my book, and my blog, I make every effort possible to keep politics out of it. Not government, that's a different issue, but politics. Right. And so that the first point on something you said. The second thing, you mentioned that sometimes you see it in a company where the senior executives, they don't even know what they're doing, right? And in my book, I talk about this. It is as a chapter on corporate culture, which is crucial. Like positive corporate culture is crucial to the long-term success of a business. And so when you have a business that is run by a founder or an entrepreneur, and I'll give you an example in a second. That founder probably started the business on their own. And so they were doing every job in the business. And then they're slowly adding more people because they can't do everything as it grows. Okay, now I need someone else to do this and I do that, whatever. And so when the employees are facing challenges, that entrepreneur has much greater empathy for what they're going through because that founder, he or she, did exactly the same thing. They know all the challenges that they faced and they know the likely challenges that their employees are going to face. So they can have that discussion. They know the business inside out. They love thrilling their customers. That's why they're there. It's all about the customer. But if you have a business that is run by a career executive that, just went to MBA, there's nothing wrong with MBAs, I'm not, but they went to MBA school but never founded a business, never knew what it was like to put your own capital at risk and start a new customer value proposition. Then if you come in and start running that business that's been around for many years, it's harder to have empathy for what's going on or listen to the employees who are doing the stuff because you've never done it yourself. You think, I'm in charge here. I'm the boss. And there are a lot of very, very good career executives, but there are some that are not. And can I give you a good example or a quick example of a corporate culture company?
Absolutely.
And I use this in my book. There's a company in Minnesota called Fastenal, and a very sort of basic business. They distribute screws and fasteners and stuff like that. And so they're based in Minnesota, and for some reason, there's a lot of good corporate culture companies in Minnesota. And so we had a tour of their plant with a plant manager. The plant manager, he's taking us around. He's so damn excited about this business. Check this out. Our customers love us, blah, blah, blah. All the employees around, they're all enthusiastic. And they jump in. Yeah, nobody ever takes a sick day. If anybody goofs off, management doesn't have to worry because we give them hell or all kind. What the hell's going on here? So why do you love the company so much? And the plant manager said, well, it's ownership and as senior executives, they treat us so well. They always listen to what we have to say. They're always happy to see us. We're all in this together and we all share in the success of the business. And then a little later he said, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you this example. The CEO was the founder. He owned a third of the business. His wife had a good stake in the company as well. She'd passed away a number of years earlier. The CEO took all of her shares and distributed them to all the employees in the company. That is great corporate culture, right? Yeah. A great corporate culture business, for it to, and to be sustainable, all the constituents of that business need to be benefiting. So yes, the shareholders, yes, senior executives, but also the suppliers, also the employees, also society at large, and then finally the customer. So there's 6 constituents. And if any one of them is getting screwed, they bow out and then the business model doesn't survive. And by the way, the most important constituent is the customer. Yeah. Because in this business model, it's the only constituent that actually pays. All the rest take. I mean, they take
Right.
money,
Right.
but they contribute value. That's why the customer is willing to pay.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah.
just a couple of comments on,
No, that's good. And I've heard that. I don't know. I feel like when I was building out because I was doing something, I can't remember who I heard this that was talking about this. It's like, I'm hearing all this. It's so funny because I'm like replaying some of this stuff that I heard, but I was building out. I worked with a mentor for 2 years and I built out a high ticket course. And I was I think it was the guy who does Obliquity. He's out of Canada, I think. And I forgot his name, but I think he talked about some of this. So this is good. And yes, it makes sense. And there's so many, takeaways from this about the culture, and you were talking about the 6 constituents. I think that is important. And I was smiling when you were talking about, they were all, like cheering, because I'm like, yeah, there is a company here. I mean, there's lots of companies like this, but there is a company here called Veridesk, and they do the standing desk. And I went in there, they're here locally in our town. And I went into the office, and immediately I went in to take a tour because somebody I knew was working there. So I went in to take a tour of the space and to see what they were all about. And immediately when I walked in there, I could tell, because I can pick up on people's energy, and like, I can walk into rooms and I can tell when I need to leave a room. Like if it feels just it. This built, like, no kidding. I walked into this space and immediately I get in there and I'm like, there's something going on in here. Like, I don't know. So I'm getting chills as I'm telling you, like, there's something going on in here and I don't know what it is, but I like it. And part of it, I realized afterwards, was just the way they had it set up. It was a very open setup that made it feel very welcoming when you walked in. Like, there's innovation here. There's like warmth, growth. Like, you know what I mean? It just, I go upstairs, and all their offices, the way they have it set up is they've got them in like groups. Like the workers are set up in these like stations, but they're not blocked off by doors where they can shut doors and can't see anybody. They've got these partition things for some of them, but they got multiple people kind of set up. So they had like the sales team all in an area. And then if I got this correct, they were rotating these workers. So certain people showed up on certain days and different groups showed up on other days. But it was a very, I could tell the culture there was it was a really unique culture. But then also I follow the CEO of the company, and he does a lot of praise and recognition on, I'll see him in LinkedIn. He praises his people, recognizes his people. And so, yes, I think, like what you're talking about is so important with just on the culture piece, but it's a culture for everybody, the investors, everybody, the customers, right? You're creating the culture for all 6 of those, everybody, right? All of them. You can't do just one piece, know, and I do believe that when you take care of your people, you take care of your clients too. I really believe that, your people are an extension of you. And so it's like your kids, right? Like if you treat your kids bad, you got grumpy kids, they're probably going to be bullies to other people, right? So you got to treat them well so they treat other people well, I think it's the same thing with your team. I think it's all starts up at the top and trickles down to.
Exactly. That's when trickle down does work, by the way. And it's
you're exactly right. When it does work, exactly.
And it's all about
situation.
right? And it's all about leading by example,
I do know some more companies like that too, by the way. I haven't interviewed that one. I do need to interview him, but I have interviewed a couple other ones that I believe are do pretty good job doing that,
And you can find great corporate cultures in some of the world's biggest companies as well.
Yeah.
And I remember meeting with the chief financial officer of Nestle, which is based in Switzerland. And he was telling us at the time that their corporate culture is their best risk control. So now companies have to have risk controls in place. There's all kinds of rules about you can't do this and you can't do that and do this and do that. But if you have a great corporate culture, I mean, you need those rules, but you need them less because people are going to do the right thing, not because you told them not to do the wrong thing. They're going to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. And you got you know what I mean? So and it's the same thing like with my team, my investment team when I was at McKinsey. I never worried about what they were doing on a day-to-day basis. So I knew they were working their asses off and doing the right thing for our clients and for their long-term financial security because it mattered to them.
Right.
It's a very powerful thing.
Yeah. And I know we've all been in those positions, I think, where we've, been involved with a group or a company and we're like, we feel like we're in a place where we're thriving and growing. And then we've been in those where we feel like life is being sucked out, and
Yeah.
it's a hard thing. I know I follow a lot of people on LinkedIn, and I always love read. The companies that have the culture in place because you can just tell. I think
Oh
you
yeah.
can just tell.
Yeah.
You walk in the room, because the employees show up because it's like you're saying they show up because they want to. They don't miss work. That's one of the things I will say. Having come from the Mary Kay side of the world, completely different than in your world. But and I know people look at network marketing and they go, eh. But I will tell you, a lot of those people that stay in Mary Kay, because obviously, I was fortunate enough that I worked myself up and got into the top 2% of the company. Majority of people never
Mm.
work their way up to that, and there was higher than me. There was like the 0.5 or whatever that's up
Yeah.
there, they
Yeah.
aspire to be. But I was fortunate enough that I did the work and got in there. But I will tell you, majority of the people that stay in that environment, they stay in because of the culture. They
Mm.
stay in because of the community, the camaraderie, because it's some of them are not making anything. Like they're there for that whole community, that
Really?
sisterhood, and that's the one thing. It was interesting when
Mm.
I left Mary Kay, when I left in 22 and started coming, actually, I sort of kind of left before that, but I officially left in 22. I formed my LLC and my new business in 2018. And that's when I started networking. And actually, as I told you before we jumped on here, kind of stepped out of my echo chamber a little bit and started meeting people in different careers. And I realized two things. I realized one, that people out here on this side outside of Mary Kay needed to know what Mary Kay's doing. Like needed to know about that culture thing over there because they're missing the boat over here. But
Mm.
also there were things over here on this side that I felt like Mary Kay needed to know, like some business sense. I felt like they were really good in a lot of ways. In business. I mean, like I told you, I learned how to sell, I learned how to
Mhm.
coach, I learned how to recruit, I could close people, all those things.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there were some things over here that needed to come over here. And so I think there's a lot of beautifulness, and that is what I'm telling you. But that culture
Mhm.
thing, I am so grateful that I spent all those years in that, because I don't know that I would have ever caught that unless I just landed in the right place, because I'd never worked in any jobs where I'd ever witnessed any of that. It was always a lot of micromanaging. And so, yeah, so there's a lot of good in it. And I think there's a lot of
Yeah.
importance in that whole culture thing. And people need to study it, and they need to, there's
Mhm.
a lot of great books out there. You can read Mary Kay's book on people management. She's got a great book on all of that, on how to deal with people and
Is
stuff,
that right?
just
Wow.
the starting,
Yeah, that's
starting. Right. It was
great.
like the first book I think I read on people management.
Wow.
So
Fantastic. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So there's a lot on that. So anyways, I love what you're doing, and I can definitely, see the passion behind that, and educating people, and, giving them the knowledge so that they can make their own informed decisions.
Yeah. Well, that's the goal. And they'll make good decisions too,
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
know?
So you've got your book. When did you write your book now?
So I started it in 2019. It took me 6 years. So it was
Yeah.
just published this year.
Yeah.
It's not
Congratulations.
it's not really in bookstores. Although on my website I have a picture of me buying it at a Barnes and Noble in Boca Raton. But it's the only bookstore I've actually found it in.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
so it's online. So you can Barnes and Noble, Thrift Books, Amazon, of
You got it
course.
everywhere. Yeah. Very
Hopefully,
good.
if sales pick up, you'll be able to get it in the stores more. But
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I wrote mine in 2019, and honestly, I'm honest, like I have never really tried to promote it that way. I mean, I've gone on
Mhm.
podcasts and others podcasts and talked about it. And if
Yeah.
people ask me like, hey, I got a book, you can get it, it's out there. But I think when I wrote it, it was kind of at that time, sort of just a cathartic release for me. It was just, I wanted to document something, but now
Uh-huh.
I sort of use it as an explanation. When people ask me about my story, I'm like, here, just read the book. It's easier.
Yeah, right.
You want to sit down? We're going to be here for a while. If I tell you like
Yeah,
how this journey all began, how we got here, just read the book. It'll give you pretty much a synopsis of how we got here.
yeah,
It'll watch
yeah,
transpired since then, but you'll get the groundwork of it.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
so
yeah.
I think it's good, but maybe because I know when we got on here, you said it, you mentioned just now, it took you 6 years, and maybe some of the, takeaways from that book that you did, because I know that's not easy. It's not an easy process. I know, because I did it. It's not easy.
It's not. And, especially your first book. And,
Yeah.
might be my only book. I don't know. But yeah,
That's how I feel too.
as we were talking, pre the recording, you learn by doing, you learn by writing, you learn by talking rather than keeping all the thoughts in your head. And obviously you have to think about things. And I cycle a lot, and I think about things all the time when I'm cycling, and oh yeah, I should maybe look this up or think about it that way. But I find it's only once I start writing things down that things become clearer in my head. And in part is because once you write it down, it's visible for everybody else to see. And so now you start to worry about, well, is this really true? If you're just thinking it in your head, you don't have to worry about what others are going to say about what you're thinking, because they don't know. So you don't challenge yourself. You don't go that one step further to fact check what it is you believe in and all this kind of stuff. And it's a very safe environment in your head. It's very unsafe when you do a recording like this, or you write something and you send it out there.
Yeah.
Now others can comment on it. And
Mhm.
and so it can be very uncomfortable, because you're putting yourself out there, and you're going to make some mistakes, but that's how you learn, obviously. And so the basic message of the book didn't really change from start to finish, because I've been talking and writing about this for many years before I started writing the book. But some of the nuts and bolts about what was going on, and I misunderstood certain things that were happening, and I wouldn't have figured that out if I hadn't started writing about it. And also, when you start writing about things and you learn more about it, you also have a lot more empathy for why people did certain things. Okay, well, I never really thought about it that way. Yeah, I kind of get it now. Still not an excuse, but you have a better understanding. And okay, and I think that was the big thing about my writing journey. Apart from the frustrations of where I wouldn't look at it for 3 months because you didn't have the time, because I was still working, and I could only write on vacations and stuff like that. And it was quite a journey.
Yeah, book writing is I agree. And I'm like you, everybody always says, I feel like I need to do like a 2.0, but I just don't have the energy right now to do it. It's just not on my want to do at this moment. People will ask me, they're like, "Are you gonna do another one?" I'm like, I don't know. I have like 100 other things I want to do before that. Maybe sometime I might sit down and do it again. But it was so I hate to use the word hard, because it's not hard to write, but it was time consuming. And it was
Yes.
like, you can't just write I can't just write when I'm forced to do things. It's kind of like creating social media. I can't just create social media that's why I have help. I actually have a helper help me do it, because I hate it so much.
Yeah.
And the more I have to think about doing it, the harder it becomes, right? Because now I'm having to force it. And so I think with writing, you really have to sort of let it just kind of flow. Like when you're doing it and you're in the moment, and like, I guess in the Zen moment, do it, but if you're done, just be done, and be okay with that.
Yeah. Don't force it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It's funny. I put up a clip yesterday in my social feed, something about when you mentioned early on about, you put stuff out there and you have to be okay with people commenting on it. And I like people to comment. I don't get a lot of comments on my stuff, but I like people to. I am cool with it, unless somebody's just nasty. If somebody's nasty, then I'm done. I'm like, you're out. I'm done. I don't have energy for you. Be nice, humans, right? Be nice, people. Because I love people. I love dialogue. I want people talking about things, and I am absolutely okay if somebody doesn't agree with everything I put out there. We're not all going to agree, right? It's okay.
Sure.
But I put something up yesterday. It was funny, social feed, that nobody did anything bad on this, but I put something up to the fact that, like, we're going to make mistakes. Like, we're going to say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing, or tell our kids the wrong thing or whatever. It just is what it is, right? We're humans. We're living a human experience. And that's what it's all about, is messing up. And to your point, taking the risk.
Yes.
Right? Taking the risk and learning from it.
Well, there's a line that people use, when a new business or a new innovation sort of bursts onto the scene, and by definition, you've never heard of it, this person or this product, because it's brand new. And then people often think, oh, look at this person, overnight success, they're making millions.
Right.
Well, what you didn't see was the 10 to 15 years of sleepless nights and long hours and investing capital and losing money and taking on debt to keep the thing going, and the help from the family. And then it finally worked. And there's a saying, I can't remember who said it, but so-and-so was a 20-year overnight success.
Right.
It's a lot of hard work.
Yeah, I interviewed a gal. Oh, it's been some time ago. She does these pants that women love now. They love them, but it was that kind of a thing. I think she went like, I can't remember if she said like 8 or 10 years, like in the making. And then somebody wore her pants on the Today Show or something, and then boom.
Wow.
Now everybody, these are like those slimming pants that they talk about for women that make them look long because they kind of, I don't say like bell bottoms. They just kind of sort of flare or something. They're the way they're cut or whatever. But yeah, it was that kind of a story where she said nobody knew really who she was. And then somebody wore her pants on a show and they liked them and got a mention. And then here we go, So you're right. It's definitely the hindsight you don't see, right? And then they come out and like, what did you do? Did you get lucky? No. You've been sweating back there for a long time. Doesn't even know if you're breathing any longer. You're like, I'm gonna not breathe anymore, And it's so awesome. So anything, because I know we've talked a little bit, and I know the money thing, we've kind of drifted into the book and all that, but I do want to ask you anything important that you like, maybe a step somebody could do, a takeaway. I don't even know where to begin on that, because I'm not as knowledge and versed in that area. It's kind of like when I get my tech people on, I'm like, let's talk tech. And I'm like, I don't know anything about tech. I know how to balance my checkbook and do those things. And husband does his investing and all of that stuff, but I'm green in that area. So I'm going to let you kind of tell us what you think us people that maybe aren't quite as versed in that need to know.
Yeah. So, the whole point of the book is this, right? And it's written in very easy to understand terms. I use analogies and stories, have a bit of fun with it. And, I start at the very beginning, which is, talking about what is money. And a lot of people don't understand what money is.
Yeah.
And it's a lot more complex than you think. And differentiating between money and capital. And I think it's once you understand that, that just gives you a much better understanding of what else is going on. And so just a very quick explanation. So capital is pretty much anything that you make, could be a good or a service. So your podcast, you're creating capital that your listeners are consuming. And so the example I give in the book is, you make bikes, let's say, you're creating capital. And let's say I make a suit. I've created capital. And now we decide to exchange our capital with each other. So I give you my suit in return for your bike that you made. So now in the economy, there was no bike and no suit. We each made one, and then we exchanged them. Now we both have one. But importantly, it didn't come at the expense of anybody else, right? So whatever capital you have, whatever wealth you have, should be a reflection of the capital and wealth that you have created over your life, and then exchanged freely with others. Nobody was coerced to buy your capital. They created their own capital that gave them the wherewithal to buy your capital. But we don't exchange capital directly. It's not a barter system. It couldn't exist in a large economy.
Yeah.
So what we do is instead is we use money. Now, so money is called in economics, it's called the medium of exchange. It's what we use to exchange all the capital that we're producing. Right. So what makes the world go round is not money. Money's very important. But if you had all this money in the world, but no capital was being created, that money would have no use.
Exactly.
Right? It's all the capital. It's all the innovation and the ideas and the enthusiasm and the hard work of people that are creating capital on the daily. That's what makes the world go round. We just use money to exchange all of these great things that we're doing.
Yeah.
But this is where the problem starts. Because when you sell, let's say you make 10 bikes. So you sell your 10 bikes, let's say they're very nice bikes, you sell them for $1,000 each. So you got $10,000 in your bank account. Effectively, you have 10 of your bikes stored up in that money, right? That money's got worth because you made bikes. So you got 10 bikes stored up in that money that you're going to spend at a later date. But before you get a chance to spend that $10,000, let's say the central bank doubles the money supply. Now, when the central bank increases the money supply, they create money out of thin air. They did not create any capital to get that money. So that money has no capital stored up in it. As soon as that money comes into circulation, into the economy, it extracts capital from the rest of the money that's already in existence. Well, if they double the money supply, it takes 5 of the bikes from your $10,000 in your bank account without your permission. So your bank statement still says you have $10,000 in the bank. So you still think you're doing okay.
Right.
But guess what? Right. Because it only has 5 bikes instead of 10, it'll only buy half as much stuff as it would have done before the central bank doubled the money supply.
So they doubled the money.
Now, they don't double the money supply, but they increase the money supply. And this is how, and that's why the name of my book is called Capital Offence. Why some benefit at your expense, because your capital is being taken from you without your permission. Governments, get capital from us through taxation. That's sort of all above board, and we can vote for whoever we think is going to tax us appropriately based on our own ideology. Or they borrow capital from us, and then typically the next generation has to pay that off, and that's another wealth redistribution. But when they print money, they take your capital, and this is the Federal Reserve Central Bank is an unelected entity. I think they have good intentions. I really do. But they take your capital from you without your consent. And it's very, very harmful to the economy. It's very harmful to the productive capacity of the economy, which I go step by step through my book. So how it's happening and what were the motives for these decisions. And a lot of it is sort of short-term thinking. It's the first order effect consequences of my actions. So if I eat a cheeseburger, it's going to taste really good. Right. But the second order effect is, I'm going to put on a bit of weight.
Exactly.
Nobody likes to think about those second order. So if I print money and buy assets, that's going to drive stock markets higher, and everybody cheers. Right? Everybody feels good because stock prices are going higher, or housing prices are going higher. And maybe I'll just touch on this quickly, Jennifer, because it's an important one. So stock prices should be rising if companies are taking saved capital and putting it to productive use to create more capital, to wow their customers. Now these companies can hire more people and pay them more. And so real capital is being produced, and that pushes up the share price. And so stock markets go up because it's reflective of what's going on in the economy, a lot of good stuff. But if stock markets are going higher just because central banks are taking interest rates down to zero and printing money and buying assets, that's not good for the economy. And rising stock markets are not reflective of more capital being produced. Even worse is when the Federal Reserve took interest rates down to 1% in 01, 02 in order to drive housing prices higher, create what they call a wealth effect. So people's house price goes up, you feel wealthier, you might borrow more money on your home, extract equity from your home and spend it, and then that looks good for GDP. But house prices should not be increasing in value because it's not a productive asset. So our house here in Mississauga, which is a suburb of Toronto, we bought it in 2001. And if we sold it today, we'd get 4 times what we paid for it.
Yeah.
But what was our contribution to society? Remember earlier I said your wealth should be reflective of what your
Right.
contributions
Right.
were. What was our contribution to warrant making 4 times on our home? Nothing.
Right.
A house
Right.
is it's not producing 4 times as many widgets. It didn't increase 4 times in size. It didn't
Right.
relocate to Palm Beach, oceanfront view, or anything like that. It's the same
Right.
economic good. So if we are making money on our home without making a contribution in some form, then our benefit must be coming at somebody else's expense.
Mm.
And it's typically the next generation, younger people or newcomers to our country who are forced, because of this monetary policy and other things, to pay 4 times what we paid for the same economic good. And so when you look down on it from a societal perspective, rather than an increase in capital, there is a redistribution of capital. So if a younger couple buys our home, there's a redistribution of capital from their bank account into ours. There was no net creation of capital.
Right.
And
Right.
this is ruining the lives of millions of young people.
Mm.
And this was never the intention of central banks, like 100%. But it is the outcome.
Mm.
And thus, and it's not sustainable. Ripping off the next generation is not sustainable. First of all, it's morally wrong. But even if you wanted to keep it going, it can't. The math just doesn't work. And I remember back in the mid 2000s, during that crazy housing boom, which peaked in 06, I think it was. My
Right.
mom was a nurse in Florida, and we go down to visit her, and she was saying that her hospital was having a hard time hiring nurses because houses and apartment rents were so expensive that nurses couldn't
Yeah.
afford to live anywhere near the hospital. They had to live so far away. And so the commute was so long, it didn't make any sense for them to work at that hospital.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so,
Right.
yeah. And so my book gives, after you're going through explaining what's going on, and as we talked earlier, I think if you have an understanding of what's going on, you have more empathy as well.
Yeah. Right. Right.
And so then at the end, I have sort of the 10 points about, what I believe, or 10 steps about what we, need to do, and what I think will lead to better outcomes and a better world and a less divided world. And I believe we can do it.
Yeah. I think the big message and takeaway here, there's a lot, but I think really like what's resonating, I always talk about this as, like as I'm going through the episode, I'm sort of thinking, like where's this whole message, right? And I think a lot here is really about empathy. I think it's knowledge, it's knowledge and empathy, because I think the more you know, the more empathy you can have for others. It's kind of like, and I don't want to get in, I don't want to get into all of the politics on this, but I went on the Dr. Phil show back when they were doing the vice presidential debates, and there was a lot of stuff going on in there. Well, at the end of the show, we all got to stay in the room, and Dr. Phil talked to the audience in there. And it was interesting because they got onto the conversation of like the border, like the immigrants coming in and all of that. And it was really interesting because I don't really have a say on either one, because I'm not privy to knowledge on either one. And I don't know enough to have a solid opinion. I do think they need to figure that out, but I also think they need to not make it so difficult.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But here was the thing. These guys, there were people in the group arguing amongst each other, because you've got the people over here that are like, well, follow the rules, don't come across the border, right? Then you have people over here who actually had family members that have gone through this process and come in and talked about how hard it was to go through the process, the cost, the cost behind it.
Yeah.
And so then as I'm listening to this, I'm like, I can see these people's perspective and I see these people's perspective. I see these people's, you know what I mean? Like I'm listening to both sides of the fence, and I'm thinking, this is where we get a breakdown, I feel like, of so many things, because we have their side and we have their side, but somewhere in this, there's a middle. Somewhere in the middle of these two sides is a middle. And this is where we're not finding the middle, because we're, like you talked in the very beginning, we're feeding on this side and we feed on this side, instead of finding somebody in the middle that can say, how do we take the points from here, take the points from here, and create some kind of a win-win for everybody. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? I
exactly.
listened to that and I was like,
Yeah,
when I walked out of there that day, because they were so hostile to each other, the two sides. And I was like, guys, seriously, like, I don't get it. Like, everybody just wants to be happy and do the right thing. Most people want to do the right thing.
exactly.
Most. There are going to be criminals. There are going to be people that do the wrong thing.
Yeah.
But majority of people want to do the right thing.
Yeah.
So how do we make this right so that everybody could do the right thing? To some degree, we can all walk away and do the right thing. You know, it's like we want to double down and fight on this cause and on this cause. And, you know, so I love what you're talking about, because I think this is so broad. You're talking, you know, in the financial space, but I think there are so many issues where there are people like us that see things and we see kind of the larger scope of what's going on. And we don't have all the answers, but, you know, like I had a gal on a long time ago, we were talking about healthcare, and she's like, you know, we could solve the world's problems if they would just do this thing. And I could see exactly what she was saying. I'm like, I don't know why they can't figure this out. Like, I don't get it. Why? But it's because everybody cling to whatever their position is, whatever it is. And they don't even want to see anything over here. Like, they just want to cling to that one side, you know, and there's no win in that.
The issues are never as black and white as people like to believe.
I agree.
And
I agree.
You know, but the good people is just, you know, when you have, you know, bad environments, like bad corporate cultures,
right?
It can bring out the worst in very good people.
I agree.
You know, and then you can bring out the best in very good people if you change the situation in an environment. I truly
agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff, Paul. Well, I know we could talk forever. I always get these few people. I have these few that come on my podcast. I'm like, we could talk about these things forever, because I am so with you on the whole thing about, you know, informing. And that's why I do the show. It's really why, you know, people that get it. Some never do. They think I just come on here and talk about random things. No, everything I bring on here is because I'm trying to get people to be aware of whether, like I said, whether it's finances, their health, whatever it is, because I know that when we thrive as human beings, you just said it, in the right environment, we can thrive and make better decisions. And so I know that when I keep throwing this knowledge out to people, that they're going to hear it, and hopefully it sticks and lands for somebody. Yep. They wake up tomorrow and say, you know what? There was something on that show that made me think maybe I should make a different decision today. I should travel. Or if it's just be kinder to somebody, just show up and treat somebody differently, because it will impact you and you can make a different choice, you know? So that's what it is for me every day. It's
I mean, it's great stuff that you're doing, and there's all these knock-on effects. So, you know, you empower somebody to make a better decision and be kinder, and then the person that they, you know, react or met with or whatever, now they are in a better mood.
Yes.
And, you know, it just keeps going. And
that might be the CEO of a company that decides tomorrow to do something different to his employees, treat his employees a little bit differently.
Yeah, no, exactly.
You know,
exactly.
It's definitely a ripple, you know?
Yeah.
Well, Paul, if our audience wants to check out the book, we mentioned, you know, you talked about the places to find it, but please share your website, so, or where the, you know, the newsletter, all the stuff is, so they know where to find you and keep up with you, and hopefully gain some more insight from you.
Yeah. Thank you. So the book is Capital Offence: Why Some Benefit at Your Expense, and it can be found online. And my website is called Paddington Capital MGMT.com. So MGMT short for management. And on there, I've got all my past blog posts. I usually do it weekly. Been doing it since 2022. So you can have a look at those. I've got other podcast interviews that I have up there. I got a book summary. So there's all kinds of stuff you can search around the website. And you can sign up for free email posts whenever I do a blog. Just put your email in there, and you can contact me as well. And you know, if you have any feedback or you don't agree with something, just shoot me an email and let me know. Yeah, just be nice. That's all.
Just be nice. That's all we ask. Don't leave. 100%. You know, every now and then I get somebody. I put a video up. Funny story, Paul. I did put a video up the other day. I wasn't even talking on this one. I had a relationship coach on, and she was saying something. It was actually directed at both men and women. It wasn't a sexist thing. It was things that how we show up, and some some guy went random on rogue on my post, and he
Really?
had this whole, like, I went back and looked at it. He had this whole sexist title on thing. I was like, dude, you know what? I wanted, for a moment, Paul, I wanted to say something to him about, like, if there is a woman in your life, I feel sorry for her. She needs to run as far as she can from you. But then I thought, I have no energy for this troll. I just had to delete it. I had no energy for it. I'm like, you know what? You are not littering my stuff with your trolling. Like, we're not gonna do that. You can disagree, whatever, but you do that nasty, we're out. So just be nice if you go to his stuff.
Yes,
you can
good for
disagree,
you,
but
Jennifer. Yeah, no, exactly. We all have enough going on in our lives. We don't need that kind of stuff.
We don't have time for that trolling stuff. You be nice to people. I don't know how you always think about, like, celebrities. That's why they have to have people do their stuff, because they get so much of that. You think, golly, man. I think at the end of the day, I would just be like, I ain't even looking at it. I don't have energy for these people. You know what I mean?
Kidding. No kidding. Yeah.
We'll make sure when this goes out, we will get your website in the show notes. And usually my editor puts something on the video so they can actually see it in writing on there as well. So we'll make sure it gets all in there, get you tagged, all the good things, so they know how to find you.
Great.
And I just wanted to say thank you to you. Appreciate you.
Well, thank you, Jennifer. It's been great talking with you, and thanks for having me on your show.
Absolutely. And of course, to our audience, we appreciate you. We love you. Hope you found this episode both informative and inspiring. And, go follow Paul, check out what he's doing, keep up with him, ask him questions if you need to. Like I said, you can disagree, just be nice. And then, of course, do all the things over here. Share, like, subscribe, comment, whatever, so that we can keep sharing all of this content. And as I always say, in order to live the extraordinary, you must start, and every start begins with a decision. You guys take care, be safe, be kind to one another, and we will see you next time.